This is 9.6.50, and they tell us that we have a large farm with an own reservoir of gas, and they sell the gas rights to a company for a guaranteed payment at a rate of 16,000 e to the 0.03 t dollars per year. I want to find the present value of this perpetual stream of income, assuming an interest rate of 7% compounded compounded continuously. I wrote that wrong. Let's change that to 7%. Okay. So present value, you can go and look up the business definition of it, but for our math class, we have this nice formula to find present value. K of t is just your rate of income, R is your interest rate, and t is our variable of time. So in our case, we're going to have the integral from 0 to infinity. Put in your rate that you're earning your money for. So 13,000 e to the 0.03 t times now e to the negative, because I have the negative, now put your interest rate as a decimal, so 0.07 t dt. Now we can go through and simplify a few things. So this is from 0 to infinity. Let's see, one of the things I might do is just pull out that 1300 so I don't have to worry about it. You can always pull them just out of the integral sign. Now e times an e, when you have an e times an e, you can just add the exponent. So we'll have 0.03t minus 0.07t dt. Let's see what this gives me. So we still have our 1300 out front from 0 to infinity. E, if you do 0.03t minus 0.07t, that gives you negative 0.04t dt. So now we need to integrate. Okay, I keep doing this. We're integrating now, so I don't need to write my sign anymore. So when you do the integral of an e to something, you keep the power the same, but you divide by the derivative of whatever's up here. So divide by our negative 0.04. And that's for your simple problems. If I'd had a derivative that wasn't just like a number here, I would actually have to do u substitution or something like that. But for just a e to the t with some constant, you can just divide by the derivative. So divide by 0.04. And if you don't believe that, go ahead and do your full u substitution. You'll get to the same answer. Okay. And we need to evaluate this from t equals 0 to infinity. So we go through, and technically I should write this as the limit, as we usually put a b here instead. The limit as b goes towards infinity of 1300 e to the negative 0.04t over 0.04 evaluated from t equals 0 to b. If you just go ahead and plug in the infinity instead of actually writing this out, it's not going to be that big of a deal. So when you take the limit, or let's go ahead and plug it in. Let's plug in our limits first, I guess. As b goes towards infinity, we're going to do the 1300 e to the negative 0.04 times b over 0.04 minus 1300 e to the negative 0.04 times 0 over 0.04. Okay, so let's see what we get here. E to the power of 0 means that this thing goes to 1. Okay, and 1300 divided by 0.04 is 32,500. So we get 32,500 e to the negative 0.04b minus 1300 times 1 over 0.04 is 32,500. Oh, and I forgot to write in my limit. So this is still the limit as b approaches infinity. Okay. So I need to plug in the infinity. Let's do one more thing though. This is an e to a negative exponent. When you have a negative exponent, that usually just means let's move it to the bottom. So we have 32,500 over e to the negative 0.0, or now it's a positive because we moved it to the bottom, 0.04b. Minus 32,500. So when I look at this, if I was to plug in the infinity, I'm going to have an infinity here. And so I'm going to have e raised to the power of infinity. So this is going to go towards e to the power of infinity. And if I have anything divided by a really, 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 really big number, then that whole thing goes to 0. So we just get a negative 32,500. And hopefully you noticed this way back when. I realized there was an issue when my final answer came out negative. Way back up here, when I took the derivative and I divided by negative 0.04, I forgot that negative 0.04. That was still supposed to be there. So somewhere I magically lost my negative part. And so this is a negative, and this is a negative. And this becomes negative, and this becomes positive, and a negative, and a positive, and positive. So my present value is 32,500.